Hi, I'm Ken Majmudar. Thanks for joining us on this video for our Investing with Ken channel. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. And if you like the content of this video, please hit like. So without any further delay, I'm super excited to share this content with you guys. It's actually stuff that I've been thinking about for a long time. I've been meaning to even write about. And all these years, I didn't really have the right opportunity or the right chance. And I know that it's very timely right now. So I'm incredibly excited about sharing this content with you. To my knowledge, I haven't seen it presented this way. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is what to do right after you lose your job. So obviously, there's a lot of different ways that people can go into a job transition, which is I think a nicer way of saying other things that, other terms for this could be in the UK and in Asia. I think they say you were made redundant. Here in the United States, sometimes we say laid off. Obviously, in some cases, it could even be because you got fired, but it could also be because you quit a job that you didn't like or a job that wasn't working for you. Or for those people out there who might be entrepreneurs or business owners, it could be because your business might have not been able to survive or failed for some reason. And I'm very excited to be sharing this right now. It's July of 2020. And obviously the topic is very timely because of what's going on in the world with all of the disruptions that are being caused by this pandemic. But it's also timely because of what's happened in our world and in our economy in an era of globalization and of technology and of rapid change. There was a time, 50, 60, 70 years ago when people used to work in one job for their whole life and they got a pension and you were a company man. Those were the days when they used to say what's good for GM is good for America. And in Japan, there used to be this term salaryman. It was the guys, and I'm saying man because that was the term. It was largely men at that time. When people used to work for one company and it was a two-way street of loyalty. You got hired by one company and you worked there your whole life, and then you retired, and sometimes your next generation got jobs there. And that was true with companies like General Motors and Ford. But that's really not, by and large, the economy that we live in today. No matter at what level of worker you are, whether you're a blue collar worker or a knowledge worker, the economy today is so dynamic, so much changing. Companies going out of the S&P 500 has so much dynamism. The companies that are the leaders today, you can look on the S&P 500, which is an index of the 500 biggest companies that's publicly traded. And the companies today you would not recognize 20 years ago. In fact, some of them didn't even exist. Amazon is one of the biggest companies. Google, Microsoft was around, but Facebook, I mean, this is just the pace of change that's going on in the world. And so most people, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how great of a person you are, in this type of an economy, people go through job transitions not infrequently. It's just a new era. And so I think the topic is very timely, but also, and this is more personal than maybe I share in some of the videos, it happened to me. I used to be an investment banker. I was for 7 years, and 9/11 happened, and at the same time, I was a telecommunications investment banker. So the telecom industry went through a major downturn. In our telecom group, that was at one point over 100 investment bankers globally, ended up shrinking after a few years to just probably 10 or 15. And so 85, 90% of that group, through a series of reductions, ended up being made redundant or being laid off in different rounds. And so I used all of this advice that I'm going to share, advice, ideas, frameworks that really helped me, and I learned from some other sources and folks, and I hope it will help you. It certainly helped me because I used all of this advice myself, and it set me on the path that I've been on now for the last 18 years, where I started my own business, and I love what I do. And I have just really, really enjoyed life as a result of that. And I can point to that transition as being a pivotal turning point, which, if it had gone a different way, all of these good things that have happened to me may not have happened. And so that's my hope for you. If you take this advice and take it seriously, I think it will help you in the same way that it helped me. So let's get on with the topic. So what to do right away after you lose your job. So the first thing I want to say on this topic is that it's very, very normal to maybe feel unhappy, sad. So let me just sort of throw out some adjectives here. If this applies to you, think about it and tell me if you think that this is kind of on the mark. But in many cases, you may feel some loss. You may feel hurt. Maybe you might feel worthless. Maybe you might feel like a failure, right? I mean, in and around these negative words, you know what? Very, very common. We are all human. This is a very human reaction. And unfortunately, sometimes the people around us in our lives, could be a spouse, a partner, a parent, perhaps in your case, a friend or a sibling, people who actually care about us might indirectly or inadvertently be adding to our anxiety in these feelings of negativity, especially early on, while we're just, like maybe you just heard about that you lost your job or that you're going to lose your job. And sometimes they do it, they're just worried, so they're asking all the time, or, hey, what are you doing, or how are you feeling, or whatever, and that doesn't necessarily help. So the first thing I want to say before even getting into the nuts and bolts of, what to do is acknowledging that this is normal and human is perfectly good. And in some ways, it's extremely helpful and healthy to accept these feelings and not to fight with them or to deny them or to create any kind of opposition internally, because that won't actually help the situation, but rather is to acknowledge them, maybe to observe the feelings, as if you're watching your own feelings. I think that can help, because it's natural to have these feelings, and one can work through them not by denial or not by fighting them, but by observing and acknowledging the feelings. But I have another thing to share on this that I think is very important, which is that even though the initial reaction might be a sense of loss or a sense of failure or hurt or perhaps worthlessness, the reality is that these feelings are there and we're human and they're natural, but they're actually not, they're not the reality. And what do I mean by that? So there's a really useful model that I was introduced to. It was actually from a guy named David Sandler, who was a very successful sales trainer, and he created a whole company called Sandler Sales System, which is a framework to help people with complex consultative sales. So if anybody that's watching this, if you're a salesperson or you're selling anything complex, that's something worth checking out. Maybe I might even do another video sometime about what I learned from that. But one of the things I learned from that is something that I'm going to share with you right now, which is the concept of the R versus the I. And R is role and I is identity. So I'm going to focus in this context on the I. So I, as an identity, is sort of our sense of self-worth or personal identity. And it starts when you're a child, sort of related to our ego and whatnot. So obviously, a lot of times these two things get confused. So I want you to do an exercise if you're watching this video. Take a moment and think about this job that you were in. And On a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to rate your effectiveness in that job. So, for example, let's say I'm just going to make something up, but let's say you're working as on the counter at McDonald's. And so that's your job. That's your R, your role. So I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how great you were at that role. Okay? So pick a number. Could be maybe you were terrible at it. Maybe you give yourself a 3. Or maybe you were excellent, the best person in the whole place and better than almost anybody else, and you can give yourself a 10. Whatever that is for you, your own subjective view, give yourself a rating on that role. Now, here's the second part of the exercise. I want you to, from a point of view of yourself and your personal identity, I want you to also rate yourself from a scale of 1 to 10. Okay? So I'll give you a few seconds. Go ahead and rate yourself. Write this down or have the number in your head. So now, what did you give yourself on this second category? Now, it's a trick question, actually. And the reason it's a trick question is because in that second category, we are all 10s. In fact, I would even go further and say we're all 11s. And we were 11s by birth because we got a set of gifts that came from, wherever we come from. You can, if you believe in it, a higher power or spirit or God or whatever the case may be, everyone is an 11. And so when we mix those two things up, our role versus our self, that can lead to a lot of vulnerability to these feelings that we're probably going through when we go into a job transition. And the reality is that there's many successful people, including people like Steve Jobs and probably many others, who failed at many things before, Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's. I would say even Howard Schultz failed at other things and tried many things before they found the thing that they really loved, that they were really good at, and they were really passionate about. But in any case, even if they never found it, it's still just an I. It's the identity is still a 10 or an 11. It does not have anything to do with the role that you're in. And so once you understand this, it really can free you up, because what you realize is that this job transition, sure, maybe that role didn't work out, but you are still an 11. And the opportunity that you have now, thanks to this transition that you're going through, is a chance to really find something else more proactively. I'm going to talk about proactivity in a second, but the key is to use this opportunity, and it's a thing that very few people do in a job transition. Again, partly related to those feelings that people immediately have, and sometimes they get lost into a spiral of a negativity. And that is something that ultimately ends up doing them a disservice. And that is why, if you look at this transition as an opportunity and you take advantage of that opportunity, it can actually be the best thing that probably could ever happen to you in your life. So remember, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, if you're a human being and you basically, your self-worth is an 11. And no matter whether your last role, you rated yourself a 2 or you rated yourself an 8 or a 10, that has nothing to do with your inherent self-worth, which is always a 10 or always an 11, depending on how you want to look at it. You could tell I'm an optimist, so I'm probably rating everybody an 11 at least. So part of this is, how can you now use this as an opportunity? How can you be proactive? Remember that success in life requires proactivity. A lot of times, if you see people who aren't successful, they're also people who were not proactive. They were reactive. And this is where I want you to ask yourself, this job that you left, did you actually love it? Did you absolutely love it? Did you skip to work in the morning? I would say that I would be shocked if the majority of people watching this could say yes to that, if they're being honest. Most people, let's be real, they do not love the work they do. In fact, in many cases, they despise it, they hate it, or they just tolerate it. And if that was your situation, if you thought of your last job as anything except skipping to work in the morning, then I have good news for you. This transition is going to be one of the potentially best things that ever happens to you in your life if you are able to take the gift of this opportunity, fully act on it, and find it, this transition, as a transition to something much better and much more suited to what you really want. So how do we do that? Now, I'm going to start with a handful of don'ts, and I bet you these are going to sound familiar. So here's a few things I don't want you to do at all right now. If you're early in your transition, or you just heard about it, or it's within the first month or so. Number one, don't prepare your resume and start sending it out. Okay? Do not do that. Do not start spamming people with links to your LinkedIn. Do not do that. Also, do not start, attending networking events, getting a list of headhunters and calling them all. Do not do any of those things. And most importantly, related to what I said about how normal feelings are in a job transition, if you do nothing else, do not give in to anxiety or negativity. Remember, you're an 11. That transition that you're going through, this transition that you're going through, is nothing to do with who you are as a person or your inherent worth. You are an 11. Do not give in to anxiety or negativity for a couple of reasons. One is it sucks. It doesn't feel good. There's no reason for it, because yes, maybe you failed in a role. Perhaps in many cases, it's not even a failure. It was just an economic transition or something going on in the world, had nothing to do with you. But also, it's not going to serve you, right? You want to choose the version of the story that serves you. And that's what I'm hoping to communicate here, is choose the best version that serves you and makes you feel good. So most importantly, do not give in to anxiety or negativity, but definitely also do not start spamming and putting your resume together and, immediately networking. And why am I saying that, to not do these things? Well, first of all, let's be real. Most people, as soon as they are in a job transition or they lose their job, guess what? That's exactly what they're doing. They are, looking frantically for their resume, trying to get it in shape, start spamming everyone and trying to get another job. Now, why are we doing this? Why are people doing this? And I'm telling you, at a point in my life, I would have done the same thing. The reason partly we do that is because of what I said. We have so much of our sense of self-worth, incorrectly, our sense of self-worth so tied to this idea that we have a job and we're bringing in money. And we forgot that our self-worth doesn't have anything to do with that the job is a means for us to, obviously we want to give some value in the world and get some value in return. And as part of that comes the ability to pay some of our bills and, take a vacation once in a while and have some nice things. But let's not confuse the two. So whether you were great at your last job or you failed at it and you didn't like it, it doesn't matter. So it's because people give into that sense of hurt and loss and feeling worthless that they're in such an incredible hurry to try to find a job, any job, to get rid of that sense of loss or hurt. But why that's a terrible idea is because, in fact, as I said, if you use this opportunity, it's a gift. It's a gift. And it's a gift, actually. My first point so I told you what not to do, and I'll explain a little more. Now I want to go into what to do. So what do I want you to do? The first thing I want you to do is be thankful and be grateful. Okay? Now, I know I'm going to get some pushback from folks here saying, hey, I just lost my job. What is there to be thankful for? I don't know your situation, but you know what? There's a lot to be thankful for. Number one, are you healthy? Do you have 2 arms and 2 legs, or even 1 arm? Can you see? There's a lot of people that are struggling with many, many worse things than just losing a job, which is not really that bad in the scheme of things, because you can, in fact, find a job or create a business. There's many options, which we're going to talk about. So be thankful. But secondly, another reason to be thankful and grateful is because this is an incredible, incredible opportunity. It just doesn't look like that to you right now. Okay? And what do I mean by that? Odds are, and this is true with most people, as I mentioned, most people cannot say that they skip to work in the morning. They cannot say that they absolutely love the work that they do. Why? Why is that? It's because, in part, they were never proactive enough to figure out what those things were and pursue them, right? How many people do you and I know who are in some profession or some role because they either, number one, fell into it, they applied to a bunch of different jobs and this was the one that came through, so they took it, and then they started, either doing well or not doing well, but it just kind of stuck. And then now you look at it, 5 years have gone by, 10 years have gone by. Or maybe another reason, they fell into it for a different reason. Maybe it was a family connection, their dad was a doctor, or it was a family business, or whatever the case may be. There wasn't a lot of proactivity or thought that went into it. And then once you get on a path, it's like inertia, right? The path of least resistance. Just stay in what you're doing. We don't typically, most people don't typically, once they're in a path, proactively, constantly ask themselves, is this the path that I wanted to be on? Is this the right path for me? So because of that, they do not recognize that, in fact, they're heading towards something that they never themselves chose, they never wanted. And so in a job transition, you have a perfect opportunity to change that and get on a path that you want to be on instead of one that you were on by default. So be thankful and be grateful. And actually, in a different video, I'm gonna share some tips on gratitude. It's a whole topic in and of itself. One of the beauties of that, of focusing on it, being grateful for things. You can be grateful for very simple things: a cup of coffee, your car is working, you have your health, you have loved ones. So there's many, many things, and that'll be a separate topic. But in this point, even though you might be feeling hurt or lost, take a moment to be grateful, and actually be grateful for the transition itself, because you have an incredible opportunity created by the transition. So my second do, even as counterintuitive as it may sound, take a break. We work our whole lives. How many times in our lives do we have more than a week or two vacation at a time? Here you're in a transition. You could take a month, 2 months, 3 months. This is time that you can use to enjoy, 6 months even. You can enjoy your life. It's time to think. Time to potentially travel and visit all those places on your bucket list. Time to maybe reconnect with the people that you love, who love you, who maybe you were very good friends with in college or a previous place or previous time. And now and everybody's busy, and now you have some time. You can actually use this time. Remember that time is one of the most precious things that we all have that we don't appreciate. And it's the one thing, time and ourselves, that, you could say two things, but time is the thing that you can never get back, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much success you have. So make the most of this opportunity. Take the time to really enjoy, because there are not that many opportunities in life, other than in a transition like this, where you can really have months and months to do the things that really give you passion and you're fired up about. Now, I know some people are going to object. They're going to say, hey, but what about money and whatever? And that is, again, a related but different topic. I actually have made other topics on how much you should be saving. So actually, if you were at all proactive with your finances and savings, there should be absolutely no issue. Everybody should have at least a 6-month emergency fund plus additional savings. But even if this is not the case for you, you can cut back on some things. Potentially, you can, unemployment benefits, that's what they're there for. Maybe it even involves, tapping into help from others. But whatever the case may be, if at all possible, remember the time that this gives you is an incredible opportunity if you see it that way, and if you choose to to use it appropriately. So take a break. That's my second do. No, remember, number one was be thankful and focus on gratitude. Number two is take a break to enjoy time, to think, to travel, to reconnect, to do things on your bucket list. And then finally, after doing that, after taking a month or two or three off, this is then a time to be proactive. And maybe you could build this in. So there are some exercises, but the key here is to not let this good transition go to waste. This is it's a play on, I think it was Barack Obama's chief of staff. I think Ron Emanuel the idea was never let a crisis go to waste. It's actually very applicable here. So here's an opportunity that you have, thanks to this transition, which is worth being grateful for, to now be proactive and to decide, what is it that you want? What is it that you would like for this next phase, this next project? Okay, figuring that out is incredibly, incredibly important. That's why I told you, do not, update your LinkedIn immediately. Do not start sending out your resume, because this time, what I want you to do is figure out proactively what role you want to take on next. Okay, so how do you figure that out? Again, I think there'll be more videos that I want to make on this topic, but here's a couple of exercises, including exercises that I've done myself that helped me figure out this path that I'm on. And so it was very, very powerful. So one way to get at it is to write your own obituary. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that at whatever age you're at now during this transition, I want you to think forward to, the end of your life, whatever that may be for you. So, what you can think of it like, okay, the average person lives to 85 or 80, 80 something these days. So wherever you're at now, think forward to that day, and you're now, you've died, and they're now writing about your life, looking backward. What is it that you wish was in there? Let's say if anything was possible, what would you want that obituary to say? The beauty of this exercise, it will help crystallize what your highest values and your vision is for yourself. Write it down. I cannot stress this enough. This is a great exercise. And if you have any questions on this, give me some comments below or email me, info@ridgewoodinvestments.com. I'm going to actually flesh this out in perhaps a different video, but I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a great time to do this exercise. Write your own obituary, looking backwards as if anything was possible from this point forward. What will your obituary say? A second way to figure out proactively what you should go for, what might be a good fit for you instead of just settling for something, is make an inventory. Now, a couple of different ways to make an inventory. One is an inventory of every job you've ever had up to this point. What jobs were the best jobs you've had, what were the worst jobs you had, and why for each one. Okay. Another way to make an inventory of things that you love to do and that you're good at. So make a list of all the things that you love to do and you're good at, and also make a list of what you hate to do and what you're bad at. So make a list of what you hate to do and what you're bad at and what you love to do and you're good at. And obviously, all of this is to try to be more proactive, to get on a path that actually suits you very, very well and will give you a dream life, the life that you really want for yourself, instead of a life of just settling for things just because somebody offered you a job. And then once you kind of do these exercises and you have your obituary and you have a list of every job you ever had, the good and the bad, etc., work backwards from that dream and vision. Then ask yourself the following question: what position or what opportunity or what role do I need to take today to go as quickly and as efficiently as possible into or towards that vision for myself that is my true inner vision? So once you figure all of that out, you are on the right path. And it's once you have all of that sorted out that you can proactively identify roles and pursue those roles. And it's only at that point that I want you to then dress up your resume and your cover letters and your LinkedIn and start pursuing that vision for yourself that you've now crystallized for the first time, thanks to this job transition that you just went through. Remember, you, yourself, your health, and especially your time, these are your most precious possessions. You can never get them back. Never forget it. And that is why, if you use this job transition opportunity to actually get onto a path that will take you to your vision and your dream of your best self and your best life, you will look back on this moment and thank yourself that this happened to you and that you use this opportunity to both enjoy the time and focus on gratitude, but also did the exercises to identify what your next thing should be. It may be another job. It could be a business. There's a lot of different possibilities here. And I'm going to do other videos. And so one of the videos, as a nice complement to this, once you figure out, in fact, a job that you want to do, or even if it's a business, I'm going to create some other videos for you on how to get almost any job you want, almost, right? Or how to start a business and how to be successful in that. So look for a couple more videos. If you like this content, please subscribe or please like the video. And this is a great one where I know that in some cases you may not be in a transition right now, or if you've been in a transition and this was helpful to you, but certainly if you know other people that are in a transition, please share this video with other people. This is the reason I made it. I'm super excited that I get to share this content with you guys. Please give me your comments and your questions or your feedback. I hope this content helps at least one person out there. Thank you.